Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of First Impression Sports Talk. Today, we're talking all things NBA, so let's get started. Welcome back to Jasmine's First Impression Sports Talk. I'm your host, Jasmine Pollock, and today we're going to talk about the NBA free agency that's happening right now. So many trades, so many different things have happened this past week alone. So let's get on the first thing, which is Bradley Beal gets traded to the Suns in exchange for Chris Paul and a bunch of draft picks. So I'm going to bring on Jeremiah, I'm going to bring on Oren, and we're going to have a conversation about these moves. So Jeremiah and Oren, welcome, and I'm glad that you guys are here because we have a lot to talk about. There's so much to talk about in the NBA. So, Jeremiah, I want to start with you. Bradley Beal, been with the Wizards for the longest time. Now that he's in a new sense of scenery, now he's in a new environment with star players like a Devin Booker and a Kevin Durant. So, Jeremiah, how big is this move, and who won the trade between the Suns and the Wizards?
Well, how big a move this is, Jazz, I would say that this can be a big question mark when it comes to the league going forward. And really who won the trade for me, I would say has to be the Washington Wizards. The reason I would say that is the reason for this trade, Bradley Beal going to, I would say, the Phoenix Suns, is to get him in a much winning situation for him to actually try to get himself a ring at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. Because we know what Washington meant for Bradley Beal, being this generation of basketball players right now that is being loyal to their franchise, because you have a Damian Lillard and also other ones that stay put, or like a Giannis. But when it came to the Bradley Beal, of course, those things, they parted their ways. And for him, he was able to control to where he wanted to go to. And, you know, he chose when it came to Phoenix. But the only thing when it comes to Phoenix at the end of the day now, right now, they really have no other assets that's mostly around them. It's just three of them, which is Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and Bradley Beal. That's just going to be your main scorers. And right now, for them also having Aiden, it's going to cause a problem too with the riff of them not going to be able to for him to get much touches. And at the end of the day, I just don't think that is going to work. It's going to look flashy at times, just like how it was with the Brooklyn Nets at a lot of time, very flashy. But when it comes down to those important games, and when it comes down to where they stay healthy, you have big question marks of how that really can go forward at the end of the day. And for Washington, getting those assets back when it came to those draft picks of first rounds and other swaps, I think it was great for them going forward, because they can get set up in a position like the Spurs did this year with getting a big top player in the future.
And not to mention, they're starting over again. Okay, we got Bradley Beal. Remember, John Wall was there for a couple of years as well. So they got their star guys out. Okay, now we can start on a new slate. Let's build a team and let's put things together in Washington. I want to bring Oren on because I want to hear his perspective on this as well, because Bradley Beal, he averaged 23 points a game last season. Very talented scorer. He was 7th in the league in scoring and percentage. So when we look at Bradley Beal, great scorer. We know Devin Booker and Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal, they're scoring machines, but the question is their defense. That's my biggest question. But let's bring on Oren. I want to get his expertise on this. So Oren, let's talk a little bit about Kevin Durant. So we know he's bounced around the league for a couple years now after he won his championships in Golden State. So, Oren, where does Kevin Durant stand all time, being that, okay, we have another super team now with Devin Booker, with Bradley Beal, without like any other benches that I'm seeing, or, you know, any depth that they have. So where does Kevin Durant stand in all time for you?
Great question. And it's funny that you said, look, my expertise, meaning my age, right? But the thing with Kevin Durant is somebody that I think is a freak of nature, similar to, like I've always said, when it comes to who LeBron James is. But we have to look at the days and times we live in where the super team has become everything that people want to be a part of. A lot of people like to go years ago when to a degree, players used to mount up, so to speak, and they used to, join and kind of move around the country, but not to the degree that we see it and how we've seen it in the past, let's just say, decade. But back to the question you asked with KD, I think what he's going to have to do is, number one, stay healthy, stop tweaking those ankles. Number two, has to really understand that with Bradley Beal coming in and who Booker is, it has to be enough ball to go around. You know what I mean? Pause.
Right.
It has to make sure that they understand what they have and what they're needing to do with it by not just being the go-to scorer. And that's what I think he's going to have to do. I'm not saying that he has to fall back, so to speak, in what his role is as far as the skill set, but he's going to have to see that it has to be enough of it to go around in order for them to win. I'm looking to see who's going to be the designated point guard and not the scoring point guard, so to speak, but that point guard that says, okay, you know what? My job is to bring the ball down, set the team up, move it around, and if in position to score. Now we know that he can do that. Clearly, we know Booker can do that. Clearly, we know Bill can do that. But will they kind of sacrifice some of what it is that they've been known for to be able to get the W continuously, to put themselves further in the playoffs? That's what I'm looking to see on a personal level. What will they do sacrificially to say, okay, guys, we had something when we brought KD in. Now Chris Paul is gone, and I know, Jasmine, you and Jeremiah were touching on that, or either we're going to touch on that, but now bringing Bradley Beal over, this speaks volume to the fact that this is now a true Three Musketeers, right? This is a truly super team that each one of the three of them are scorers. They are known for putting the ball in the basket. How will any of those three say to themselves, okay, you know what? Can I dial back my percentage to 10, 15 less of a percentage of shots taken, and maybe 5 to 8 points less scoring per game? That's going to be, to me, some of the degree of what those questions are going to happen to having to be had in the locker room.
Absolutely. And they have to make it work because the Suns are in a financial setback with 161 million combined with DeAndre Ayton, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and now Bradley Beal. So they have to make it work. I mean, there's a lot of money put into this. So it's for them. This is a do or die season for me. Yes. Jeremiah, to you, we talk about Kevin Durant, and I know we mentioned in what Oren was talking about who's going to be able to take that back seat. So who would you say, Jeremiah, is most likely to take that back seat and start to be the leader? Because we always question the leadership of Kevin Durant, the leadership of Devin Booker, because that's why Chris Paul was there in the first place. But now, who is going to be have that leadership position on this Suns team?
Well, to me, the one guy that I always seen his leadership, especially when it came to for years to come, especially the place that he was at, was Bradley Beal. I've seen him when it came to him in action, having so many different people that came through there, especially the younger players that was even after him. Although Washington wasn't winning much, everybody that always left Washington always said great things about Bradley Beal, his leadership and everything else. Now, for him being new, I feel like for himself, he will take the back seat and won't really too much of demand the ball, but actually play the motions. And I feel like for himself, being such a veteran as he is, and like not much as KD, but maybe a little bit over Booker, I think that he'll just use his ways and his experience, but still at the same time, I don't know if it will buy in well, because you have so many of your players that, of course, you got Booker that's making over 100 million. You have Durant that's making over 100 million. You have DeAndre Ayton that's making over 100 million. So it's kind of hard to tell somebody that's making so much money and somebody that's not going to be benched at the end of the day what to do or how to kind of move at the end of the day. So I think this will be a bigger challenge for him right now, because you're going against, a very more, I say, older and much elite scores, but at the same time, that's going to be the biggest challenge for this team. And I say Bradley Beal going forward.
Can I touch on it?
Go ahead, Warren.
The only reason Jeremiah got me going when he said that, Bradley Beal, I personally would say, is the natural leader out of the three. Like, if you really think, for instance, who is it that knows how to lead and conduct a team? from a captain standpoint, I would say Bradley Beal. A lot of times we always think that a leader is the one that is the greatest scorer, and that's not always the case. And you mentioned it earlier, Jasmine. You go back to KD at OKC and then going to Golden State. That's nothing that a true leader is going to do.
Yeah.
No bit of shade, but I'm not throwing any shade. But you kind of get where I'm going. Yeah. A true leader. Michael Jordan is not doing that.
He's not going to the Pistons.
He's not going to the Pistons, right? And it may be that's a good point. He's not going to the Pistons. He's not mounting up with Isaiah and Dumas, right? But when we see in today's game, a lot of people do that. But to me, I think, and I just wanted to say this a little bit to piggyback on Jeremiah, Bradley Beal is really biting a piece of humble pie, saying that, you know what, I'm going to come over to Phoenix and see what we can do. And I agree with you, Jeremiah. I think he is going to be who says, okay, you know what, I'm cool with taking this role, a little bit of the backseat, similar to what Dwayne Wade did when Boston and LeBron came to Miami for 3, right? Yeah. We know that. Let's be real, guys. Dwayne Wade was the leader of that team.
He was. I agree.
He was the leader, but he took a step back. To me, that's what gave them the success that they had. Now, matter of fact, heard it here first. If Phoenix can do that, they could have possibly similar success that Miami had with that big 3, if they know how to fall in line and let who is the leader lead. I like that, Jeremiah. Good point, bro.
And now, too, if we look at the head coach, they hired Frank Vogel after firing Monty Williams, and now Monty Williams is with the Detroit Pistons now. So for Frank Vogel, how is he going to be able to keep these guys together? Big egos, a lot of guys that battle back and forth. How is he going to be able to keep these egos? He's been with a lot of egotistic people. He's with the Lakers. He was with Indiana Pacers, with Paul George and George Hibbert, all those guys like that. But now this is a much bigger scale. You have Kevin Durant. There's a lot of pressure on Kevin Durant. I know the media is not giving him that pressure a lot, but there's a lot of pressure because now it's like, okay, this is your second team since Golden State. Are you going to be able to win? What are we going to do now? So there's a lot of questions. But before we go to midpoint break, I want to ask you, Orrin, is the Suns a championship team now? Now let's look at the team as a whole. Now the Bradley Beal trade is here. Bradley Beal's on the team. It looks like they're keeping DeAndre Ayton. I know there was some conversations about them looking to trade him and move from him, but it looks like he's staying. Is this a championship team, and are they the favorites in the West?
No. Look, to the second part of your question, no. I became somewhat of a Denver fan this year, and honestly, it's because of Jokic. So I'm going to say no in regards to that. Do I think that they have a greater chance at moving a little bit further along and having a little bit more success in the playoffs? I think that they can, because to me, I think that with Beal coming over and joining with them, it gives them that opportunity to get over the hump, so to speak. But I think a lot of humble pie is going to have to be moved around throughout the team in order for people to realize that, guys, we have something special. I always say, I know a lot of people have some negative things to say about Chris Paul, but honestly, I think that they had something good.
They did
great with him on the team. So it's more than just continuously trying to put the blame on Chris Paul, right? And put the blame on one person. They had a great coach in Monty, right? So let's look at the fact that bringing Beal over, can they get it together? I love what you said, and I'll say this real quick because I know you said we're going to break. I think a lot is riding on KD because Kevin Durant, and I said this to my son actually the other day, and I'm just going to go back a little bit. What OKC had with the draft class and the individuals that they brought in several years back with all of those players we know that once were there together. If they knew how to figure it out there, we would have seen a dynasty back then.
I know.
Right?
I know.
It shows you that they have it, but do they know how to reserve some of what they have in order for others to be able to grow? So that would be what I would say will determine if they're championship contenders. I think Denver's going to be who actually sees themselves putting a few things on their fingers for a couple of years. That's my opinion.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to say I have to agree with you, Orrin. I don't see the Suns winning or being the favorites because I don't know if people want to talk about it. When Kevin Durant went to Golden State, he shattered my hopes for him. No longer, I didn't support him after that. I'm a huge LeBron James fan, and I was telling myself that when LeBron retires, I was going to jump right on KD's thing because I admired him. still a phenomenal talent. But when
Yes.
he went to Golden State, that changed the landscape of so much. And now it's like comical, you know,
Yeah.
like you go to Brooklyn, you get Kyrie, you get James
Right.
Harden. That didn't work out. Then now last year,
Yeah.
you're with the Suns, Booker, Chris Paul. That didn't work out. Now Chris Paul is gone, which was your leader,
Yeah.
your veteran that they needed. Now you get Bradley Beal. It's a similar situation, star scorers, but where's going to be the defensive presence that, you know, against a Jokic, against Golden State, who's still going to be around? What are we going to see heading forward to, you know, for the Suns team playing defense? DeAndre Ayton, I'm not fond of him because against other guys, he's supposed to be dominating. You got guys like Jokic, you got guys like Embiid, even Anthony Davis. You're not on the same level as them, and there's no urgency because you're young. He's young.
Yeah.
And even when he was playing against Giannis in that finals, there was no anything against Giannis. It wasn't like he was competing as much, and Giannis was just moving him out the way. So for DeAndre Ayton, what's he going to be? You know, we've seen year after year now, okay, he hasn't made that leap like we've seen other guys make that leap.
Yeah.
So when I look at the Suns team on paper, very nice, but on the court.
Yeah.
And can they make a run? And all three of them, Booker, Durant, and Beal, show that they can have injuries as well. So Jeremiah, quick, you got 1 minute. So are the Suns winning the championship? Can they win the championship? Will they?
No, they are not winning the championship. I don't think they will win the championship unless they prove me wrong. But the reason I say that real quickly is because just what Oren was just saying, the lack of just leadership on that team, I feel. I think they're going to miss Chris Paul at the end of the day because one thing about Chris Paul, he will get injured, but still at the same time, he will be the biggest voice when it comes to their team of a very vocal person. While that was the reason why Miami went to this final, Udonis Haslem, why the Warriors have an Iguodala on their team. You need your big vocal points when it comes to your team and ones to keep you in place, no matter how big your status is or anything else. It's all about team. It's all about winning.
Love it.
Right. And before we go to a break, we're going to talk about the Celtics in the next segment because they got rid of their star leader, Marcus Smart. So there's going to be a lot of questions about what's going to happen with the Suns. So when we get back, we're going to talk about all things Celtics and what they have done and Chris Paul going to the Warriors. So we'll be right back.
Renting is everything. It's style at your doorstep. Off the runway and into your closet. It's every trend you've been dying to try and every designer you've yet to discover. It's wearing it your way every time and making it count everywhere you go. It's never worrying about what to wear because something new is always coming your way. That's why renting is everything. New styles, top designers, all for a flat monthly fee. Start your subscription at renttherunway.com.
Slow roasted over hickory fire and pulled by hand. This is the way pit pork has always been done. Pulled pork lovers, rejoice. The smoky old days are back at the Smoke Shack. From the creative team that brought you The Browning Project and Dead by Morning comes a new thriller that will change the way you look at white-collar crime forever. Falling from the Sky.
You're watching Jasmine Pollock's First Impressions Sports Talk. Be sure to join Jasmine every week for great conversation on the NBA, NFL, and a wide variety of sports topics. To see past episodes of First Impressions Sports Talk, go to YouTube and search First Impressions Sports Talk. You can connect with Jasmine on LinkedIn by searching Jasmine Pollock. And now, back to more First Impressions Sports Talk.
Welcome back to Jasmine's First Impression Sports Talk. If you'd like to see past episodes of my show, please check out my new and revamped website, jasmineonsports.com. You can get my demo reels on there, my content, all things about Jasmine Pollock and First Impression Sports Talk. Check me out on Twitter also at JazzyS, where I'm tweeting all things about the latest, hottest topics going on in sports right now. And let's get back to this conversation. So before we were talking about the Suns making their moves and their leadership roles, who's going to step in and be a leader. So let's go into the Eastern Conference now, where the Boston Celtics have traded away Marcus Smart to the Grizzlies, and they get Kristaps Porzingis. Now, initially, I was confused because I was like, why would you trade Marcus Smart? I mean, 2-time defensive player, 3-time defensive all-team. You trade away your top players. So let's bring on Jeremiah. Let's bring on Oren, and let's have this conversation. I want to start with Oren. Oren, the Celtics have been that team that's been consistent. They've been to the Eastern Conference Finals, I believe, 6 times now. And they have a young nucleus, of course, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. You get Al Horford a couple years ago. Now Marcus Smart is gone, one of your top bench players, one of your top players in the league, defensively, give you that spark off the bench. He's gone. So they get Kristaps Porzingis. What do you think about that?
So I want to start off here because actually I was pondering when we were coming out of the break, thinking about which angle I wanted to come from. I've been a fan of Porzingis since he got drafted. So I always say, to me, one thing that did not happen with Porzingis earlier on in his career, my opinion, is that the teams that he was with, now I believe that the Knicks did give him 4 years to kind of try to figure things out. Then he came down here to where I am at the Dallas Mavericks. But then he's kind of hopped around, right? So what I honestly want to see what happens with him at the Celtics. Are they going to give him a chance to grow and to build? But what's going to be difficult is you have Horford. You already have somebody, as a big in that position. Now to Marcus Smart. Honestly, I think that what happened with that is some things that were going on. I think it was more of a locker room issue. Now, I could be totally wrong, but I'll tell you why I say this. Why would you get rid of such a star person? And I don't mean star as a superstar, but I'm talking about a star that shines bright, that actually was a major component in the success that the Celtics have. Now, we already know, a lot of us were privy to know that there was something going on with their 2 main guys, right? But
yes, there was.
Smart that brought to the team to say, while they're over there trying to figure out who's going to be who scores the ball, I'm gonna make sure that defense is on point, and I'm gonna make sure that I put the ball in the hoop when necessary. That was, to me, what kind of was like, what is this? What is it that the Celtics are doing with this particular trade? So I think it was something that we're not privy to know, just as fans of the game. I think that some people know, but I'm looking to hear what Marcus speaks about once he gets down to Memphis, how he meshes there. I think that that'll be the tall tale of us getting a chance to see, was it a business move? Was it a personnel move? Was it something that was where they just had to do it? But we've seen it happen before. I mean, we could go back to DeRozan, DeMar, being shipped out of Toronto, and it was like, well, what happened, right? And we see that, granted, he came down here to my Spurs, right? But you could tell that he felt some type of way. So I'm looking to see it to be similar to that, but I hope it's not something that takes away from who he is and what he is to any team, because he's a significant he's an asset to a team. But to Porzingis, hopefully he can stay there for a little while. I've never liked the fact that teams have not given him the chance to grow. I know he's been injury prone, but like I said, I was a fan when he got drafted. A lot of people did not like it. I remember the draft. I can remember like it was yesterday. Even the Knicks fans were like, boo. But they had no idea that they were getting somebody that kind of sort of was a KD-ish type of player, just different within some parts of his game, but he just never really was able to develop. So hopefully while he's at the Celtics, he can be able to work out some of what it is that he actually brings to the table. But for Marcus, it's hard to say.
Yeah, for me, when I look at this trade, when I first saw it, I was one of those people like, okay, so what is the Celtics going to do? I mean, it's the same year. They've been losing to the Heat a couple of times. Now, I know they went to the finals last year, and then, of course, Golden State took off and things of that nature. But Porzingis, my biggest knock on him is his injuries. He's a specimen. over 7-foot monster. Of course, he can do a lot of different things, but I haven't seen him enough because, of course, it's his injuries. He averaged 23 points last year. He had eight rebounds as well. Yeah. But for Boston, I think he's in a better situation in Boston, but there's a lot of pressure in Boston because of what Boston means and what they're trying to do. They're trying to get back to the finals and win a finals since they won back in 2008 with Paul Pierce and Rondo and Garnett and those guys. So when I look at Marcus Smart, though, he is one of the reasons why you've been consistent, and he has been your unsung leader. He's not the big name guy like a Jason Tatum, but he was your guy that, okay, when he comes off the bench in that second unit, he can lead. He can hit threes, timely threes. You can put pressure on the opposing team's offense with him. So I know for him, I know he was blindsided because he wanted to retire as a Celtic. Right. And I know it's like, wow. Like, I mean, I put my heart and soul, literally his heart and soul in this team. So when I look at it now, who's coming off that bench? Who's going to be that person that's going to be like, okay, now we are here. This person's a dog. He was a dog. Now for Grizzlies, now this is a turn I just thought about. We all know what's going on with Ja, his issues off the court, and then Dylan Brooks, their issues. Adding somebody like Marcus Smart, who is a leader, who knows how to rally guys around, could this be good for the Grizzlies? And I know a lot of people are not looking at it that way, but could it be good for, John Morant? Could this be like, okay, we got another dog on the team that could, kind of walk him through things. He's been in different situations. He's been in Eastern Conference Finals. But Jeremiah, for you, what does this mean for Boston? Does this put Boston over the edge, or is this a setback, or they were going to remain the same?
Well, to be honest, for me, I still think to answer your question, I think that they are going to really remain the same. I would say when it comes to their big man and postman, of course, it's going to be to where they can actually have some plays maybe around and everything else. But when it comes to a person like Porzingis, he is a big man that mostly moves off the ball. He's not the one to really post up to like, give me the ball. I'm a post up like how I was in old school. And for Boston, the reason I'll say it the same is it's going to say the same when it comes to their mindset of not having a leader around there. Now, we know Marcus Smart was their main leader when it came to that team. It was, and you respect their two superstars, which was Jason Tatum and also Jaylen Brown, to be your biggest vocals ones, since they're the biggest scorers on your team and your biggest superstars, as bringing in, of course, the eyes and everything. But it's so many times that they'll say, "Oh, I gotta see." It's too much of a hesitant, and right then and there, that's what's keeping them from going even further. Because of that hesitant to take over, to do more for the team when it comes to taking ownership, saying like, this is mine, not just when you're scoring, but we're talking about when it really matters and when you need to be vocal in that locker room, getting those guys up and saying that this is our team, this is my team. Like, you're going to follow me and we're going to do this. But I just feel like there is going to be at a same standstill, really, when it comes to them with the mindset. But of course, they got big when it comes to Porzingis. But I still think they're going to struggle because I think Porzingis looks for that 1-2 punch that he needs. I feel. And having Jaylen Brown and also Jason Tatum to really have most of the ball in their possession the whole time, I don't know how that's really going to mesh at the end of the day, too.
Good point.
And we all know Porzingis is going to be going up against Embiid. You're going to be going up against Giannis. You're going to be going up against Bam Adebayo. So there's some other guys that, is going to – he has to – I think he's got to step his game. I think this is the best situation he's been in.
I would agree.
But I just think there's a lot of pressure in Boston. And I know Brad Stevens now is a general manager, and I just didn't understand that move because you coached Marcus Smart. You had one-on-ones with Marcus Smart. He was the guy that gave you a lot of great minutes. I mean, he averaged 32 minutes last year. So he was a significant reason why Boston has been getting to that edge and getting to the Eastern Conference Finals. But, and this is just a throw out there. There's been conversation that they want Kyrie back, which I don't know if that's going to happen. But that's just been conversation about they want Kyrie back. But I don't think that should happen. I don't think they should do that. That's that's been there and done that. But let's go back to the Western Conference Finals with the Golden State Warriors moving on from Jordan Poole to go get Chris Paul. So we all know Chris Paul was traded from the Suns to get Bradley Beal. Now he's a Warrior. Oren, talk about that, and what does that mean for Chris Paul? Like, is this the last dance for Chris Paul with the Warriors?
I love the way you said, is this the last dance? I'll say this much. If Chris Paul is smart, and I really believe, excuse me, he has an amazing IQ when it comes to basketball, but when it comes to business and his legacy, so to speak, I think that I would retire if I was him, depending upon whichever way the success goes for him. I want to touch on two things, if you don't mind. Draymond spoke about that he doesn't feel as though that it was a good move. He and Chris Paul have not had the best relationship. And he feels as though that Chris Paul has never really had that much of respect, so to speak, for Steph Curry. So that's going to be interesting to see how they figured that out. To the Jordan Poole piece, I think that the writing was on the wall, and where we're able to see this move being brought forth. Honestly, first thing came to my mind was I said, way to go, Golden State, on your loyalty to Draymond in regards to who he is and what he means to the Golden State Warriors. Now, will they move him? Is still the question, right? So to Jeremiah, I love the way you say it, put a question mark over that. But when it comes to Chris Paul, to your question, Jasmine, I think that this is to some degree his last. I honestly thought it was going to be his last dance at Phoenix.
With the Suns.
Right, with
Phoenix,
Well, that was a shocker to me. I will say this, although I am from the East Coast and I'm down in the South now, I did not think that was going to be a good fit for him over in Washington. So I was glad that he was able right? I was glad that he was actually able to get closer to home. In regards to LA, but that's not home, but you guys know what I mean when I'm saying home as far as where all of the superstars live. But last dance, yes, my opinion, I agree with you. But meshing chemistry, it's hard to say. It's hard to say.
It's a question.
I'll give it back to you because I know you're gonna set the stage for it, but that's the part where I'm looking to hear what you guys got to say about that, because that's a hard one right there.
And you mentioned something about the respect that he has for Curry, and I know there's some shots been thrown between the 2 point guards, so now they're teammates. So I don't know. Oh, it's gonna be weird, but you have someone like Draymond. Draymond is very vocal. He does not care. I mean, we saw the punch with Jordan Poole last season. So I mean, he's very, very vocal. So he is. Right. Draymond is the glue to the Golden State Warriors. And of course, as Curry's team, he is the face, but Draymond is that glue. So we're going to see. But for me, when I'm looking at this, right now, the reports are saying the reason why this move happened with getting Chris Paul is to give Curry much needed rest, because we saw last season, Golden State's differential was very low when Curry went to the bench. And their bench didn't do as well. And of course, that had a lot to do with Jordan Poole. Jordan Poole didn't have the season that he did prior. So there was a lot of things that they needed to do, and their depth wasn't competing as much, and they weren't getting the production that they were expecting. So you get someone like Chris Paul. But I don't know if Chris Paul is that same Chris Paul that we're expecting. He's not. I believe he's on his last legs. I don't know how he's going to fit in this offense where they do a lot of pick and rolls, a lot of rotation, shooting the ball, and different things like that. When I look at Golden State right now, we look at Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson is not the same. We saw that, in the postseason against the Lakers, not the same player. Draymond's still that dog. He's still going to get you, be physical, and still do things like that. But when we look at this Golden State team, they're getting older. They're not getting any younger. So it's like, you add someone like Chris Paul, and I'm glad they moved on from Jordan Poole, because I think that was a problem waiting to happen anyway. But the question is, you traded youth away still for an older player when your team is getting older. So that's how I look at it too. But I just want to see how it goes. I love Chris Paul. I want him to win, but I don't know if, being that when we look at if Denver can keep it together, and we have other teams that are around that can keep it together, I don't know if Chris Paul is going to ever win a championship. I just don't know. So, Jeremiah, for you, let's just look at Jordan Poole and what's going to happen with him in the Wizards. So, for Jordan Poole, had a decline last season. He wasn't that same player like he was when they won the finals. Are the Wizards on the cusp of maybe, making a run and getting some more players? Could they, I know they got a lot of picks. Could they go draft or get a star player, maybe another star player with all the draft picks they have, or the Wizards is going to start with a clean slate?
I think that the Wizards are going to start with a clean slate only because when it comes to the Washington Wizards, they're trying to find a new identity for themselves. They're trying to get from the parts of, oh, you guys are the Bradley Beal team or the John Wall team, that tag team. Now they're like, listen, we've been the laughing stock for the longest times. We're going to try to build ourselves our own culture, our own identity, and we're going to try to start from scratch and actually move to an upper position. Because right now, with them having Jordan Poole, I mean, it would give them, and of course, Tice Young, him going over there, I feel like, you're going to have some great young assets, great shooters, and a lot of guys that were great pieces for other teams. Because you already see when it came to Tyus Jones. When it came to Tyus Jones, him being with the Grizzlies, he was such a key piece for them when it came to the playoffs and also the games that y'all missed. He was able to showcase himself, and you're gonna need to have those guys like that. A Jordan Poole, guys that's not scared to shoot. Now, of course, he had a down year. Him going to a new scenery is going to make him just feel even better. You don't have to worry about the pressure of being behind a Curry, behind a Klay Thompson, or anybody else anymore. You could just be yourself, new scenery, and this is your team that's going to be for you. And I just feel for Washington, they can build around this, and I just feel like they're going to keep their picks intact, and I just feel like they're just going to move up from there.
And I know Washington is very hungry. I know it's been down years for the longest time, so I think the fans are just waiting for a team to be, able to compete in the East and just put a team together. And I like the draft picks they've got. Of course, I like them getting Jordan Poole for them. It was a win-win to get rid of Jordan Poole for Golden State and a win for Washington to get him because he has the experience. He's a champion. So he has that experience of, okay, I know what it feels like. I've been there. So you can have the little quote-unquote veteran aspect to it. But I think for Golden State, if Chris Paul can get you maybe 10, 13 points, that could help, with Curry being on the bench. If Curry's getting his rest and different things like that. But I just feel like for Golden State, they're getting older. Klay Thompson's not getting any older. He's not the same guy. Yes. Curry's still going to be Curry. Draymond, we're still questioning whether they're going to keep him or they're going to move from him. But it's the youth that I'm worried about for Golden State because now people are like, okay, now they're getting older. Is the dynasty over? That's been the question for this past year. So that's just my biggest thing for the Warriors and how they match up with everyone else. And, Oren, they need size. I mean, the size has been a problem.
Yeah. I was going to ask you
playing against the Jokic.
Yeah.
So, Oren, to that point, why do you think they didn't go get size?
I'm so glad that you asked me that question. And I'll tell you, the first thing came to my mind as you were speaking was bringing in Chris Paul, yes, to be able to give Curry some rest, but is to also consider that you hit the needle on the head, Jasmine, that their team is pretty much on the downslope, right? Where they're no longer the championship team that they once were. They're aged, let's be real. And sometimes I think the genius within upper management, it looks at it from a standpoint of saying, okay, if we bring in an individual that's going to be retiring soon, right, that we'll be able to say, okay, you know what, we're going to give you your last run, your last dance. But it's almost where you can look at Golden State that they're positioning themselves for a rebuild in the future, the near future, with young guys. I don't think Jordan Poole was that guy for them to build around. I think he was the success he had during the championship year, the year before last, went to his head.
Yes,
I think that what Draymond did, and I think that a lot of people are afraid to say this, but I'm from an era where sometimes that chin has to get touched when you get a little too big for your britches. I think that what Draymond did was let him know, young brother, go sit down somewhere. You know what I mean? You're not the man around here, type of thing. And I think for because of the days and times we live in, Jordan Poole didn't understand that, so it affected his game. So where Draymond spoke about that, he know that the punch affected his team and his game, he was right. So I respect him for doing that. But to your point with bigs, Golden State is going to have to say to themselves, for what it is that we do this upcoming year will show us what we need to do for the future. That's my opinion with this year. This year is kind of a studying analysis type of thing of what is it that we need to do different? Where do we need to tweak? Where do we need to stay the same? I'm looking forward to seeing actually what they do with Draymond, because within the next year or two, they're gonna shake it up, right? For the most part, Steph is gonna retire as a Golden State Warrior. Clay might retire as a Golden State Warrior. Draymond may not, because to me, out of the three, Draymond will be who can go somewhere else and help another team have success.
Right.
But I would love to see him retire as a Golden State Warrior. But to the big, they had a few. They had the young guy that came a year or two ago that they got rid of last year, right? I think it was last year. But they have to be able to know what they're coming into. The Golden State Warriors have a system similar to the Spurs, similar to when Phil had the Bulls, and those type of coach teams, you need to know that the coach is the coach, the star is the star, and the role players are the role players. And not every young guy come into that system and mesh according to what is needed right then. You know, that takes a little bit of time. So we'll see. We'll see as this year expires. We'll see.
Absolutely. But I just feel like these moves have been crazy. I mean, I'm trying to keep up with them as they go, but I know we're on a Damian Lillard watch. That's been the conversation going up now. What is going to happen with Damian Lillard? Is he going to leave? Is he going to demand a trade? I know Miami's in the conversation. There's just a lot going on. Of course, Kyrie Irving, he's a free agent. Just a lot of moving parts happening in the NBA, but we're definitely keeping an eye on it. But thank you, Orrin, and thank you, Jeremiah, for giving your expertise and giving your opinions about the NBA right now. I know it's just a lot of different things, and me and my dad talked about it before we leave. My dad, he loved the old school basketball just like you did, Orrin. And I wish I was living at that time seeing that old school basketball, because I'm just getting tired of the same things that are happening right now in the NBA. But my dad was saying, he said, now we're giving players these big contracts with just the name and nothing with it, no kind of resume with it. And he's just like, and now you have these expectations. The person's not doing what they're supposed to be doing. We look at Ja, we look at Zion, the top two picks in that draft, and now it's like you warped all this money around them. And now it's like, man, we're in a bind. So he was like, these teams have to start waking up and saying, okay, we'll give you 5 years, but it's like, what are you going to do for us? And then we'll talk about a big contract. So that's where I'm at with the NBA as well. Like, when are we going to stop giving the big contracts yet? And just let's see what they are doing. Let's see what they become. So
that is so
what do you think about that one before we get out? What do you think about this notion now? Contract, name. Oh my gosh. Boom.
I'll tell you something. Your dad is on point. And yes, you're right. He and I are from the same era of watching basketball be played for the love of the game. You know, the going out and saying to oneself, you know, I think I have something that I can continue to build upon, and hopefully it'll take me somewhere. That player, I think, is far gone. I think the player of today, you know, even look at this year's draft. Each year, players look like they're already making the money that they're going to make when they're in the league, right? So they no longer actually look like they have the same hunger and the same love for the game, you know, so they almost have bought into the business well before the business has actually been able to show itself to be something. But when you speak about that bag that these guys get, we know realistically speaking, it's huge. You couldn't have said that any better, Jasmine. It is huge. It is beyond anyone's imagination of being able to make that amount of money doing something that you started doing at a young age, but that you've yet to show yourself to be approved of needing to even receive something of such. Michael Jordan is the first person we heard speak about that. And you said it tonight. Your name is what gets you a bag versus your game is what gets you a bag. When did that start? To me, that's when, and I'm an NBA guy, I'm a basketball guy, that affected the game tremendously. You know, I really believe that this past season was a season to give hope back to the league. Honestly, when it came to what happened with Ja, I think people got to realize that, and I wanted to touch on something that you spoke about, if you don't mind me kind of doubling back a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead.
Marcus Smart is a good move for Memphis, because I think that he's going to be a veteran that can help Ja mature. I really believe that. I think he's going to be a benefit for Ja. That just kind of came to my mind when you were speaking earlier. But when it comes to the bag that these young guys are getting, can you imagine being 21, 20? Can you imagine being you guys' age, what your age is, 100, $200 million to do something that you love. Let's be real. You give hundreds of millions of dollars to a young person that has yet to actually had to be as independent as a 30-year-old is, or a 35-year-old actually on their way out, when back in the day is when the player used to get the larger bag. Mike didn't get the big bag until he was almost on his way out. So I always reference that. I know your dad does as well, but that's the difference. They get it up front versus after they showed themselves approved. And to me, until that changes, and I don't think it's going to change, guys, I think that the owners and management of today's sports realizes that these kids will do whatever we want them to do from an entertainment standpoint if we put a lot of zeros behind that number one.
Absolutely. And then we look at the draft. Victor Wembanyama, he was the number one pick with the Spurs. Yes. They're going to give him a big contract. He's been talked about for the past 2 years now. So I should expect a year or two from now, he's going to have these huge, crazy bag. And then, of course, we have Bronny James coming in. He's going to, of course, it's just the whole landscape of the NBA has completely changed. And it's just now like, and that's why these teams are getting warped. They're getting in these financial binds, and they don't have any money because you have all this money in one player, and there's no resume to add to it. So hopefully we'll see it change. I don't think it's going to change. It's just a lot going on.
And look at this, like the market is keep rising and rising every year like for it. And because you see it in the NBA and of course the NFL, but for the NBA, because even before, even Warner, that what you just said, even when Michael getting his bag later, he got plenty of his bag when it just came from even outside of basketball. From endorsements. Everything was moving around him to where it's like the NBA money, like I'm good with. Even when it came to LeBron, of course he's getting his money now, but when it came to him, when he was winning those championships, it was all about the different pay cuts. He was good outside of basketball because the different endorsements, the commercials, the Nike deals, like you're setting yourself up already for those things because trying to, of course, for these young guys, of course, getting that money quick is cool, but also having other things that's maybe around you to set you up for the future, and you just worry about your game. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah,
I agree. But again, thank you again, Oren and Jeremiah, for your expertise. We're going to continue to keep an eye on the NBA. There's going to be a lot more moves. I think we're going to be shocked by what's going to happen because, the NBA free agency frenzy is always happening. But that wraps up this episode of First Impression Sports Talk. Again, you can catch First Impression Sports Talk every Monday at 7 p.m., which is our new time. And we're definitely going to keep talking about what's happening in college football is coming as well. So I'm really excited about that. I'm ready for the NFL season. Kind of tired of the NBA because there's always something going on. So that wraps up First Impression Sports Talk. See you guys next time for more.